Sponsored by Recyclist. Recyclist was born out of frustration over the lack of quality information available about recycling. Recyclist, cloud-based solutions that make solid waste program management easy. Find them on the web at recyclist.co.
Hi everyone, I'm Mary Ellen with Headwaters Science Institute, and today I'm going to show you how to reduce your food waste by vermicomposting or worm farming. Worms consume kitchen scraps and turn it into worm poop or worm castings, which improve the texture and the nutrient power of your soil. Through their travels, they also aerate the soil, which really helps out the microbes that exist in the soil. Redworms are the best. They're better than your garden earthworm because they don't burrow in too deep and they consume a lot more per their body weight. Worms are really interesting. They have 5 hearts and no eyes. There's a receptor on their head that senses light and touch. They breathe through their skin, so they need to stay moist. So it's really important to keep your worms in the dark and a little bit moist. I think you're really going to enjoy these little critters and seeing how fast your food waste disappears. Before we start, try to think of some questions that you could come up with about your worm farm. You could ask, how fast does the food disappear? Does the weight of your container change from when you put the food in and a week later? Does the color change? Is there certain food that disappears faster than others? So let's jump in and I'm going to show you what supplies you're going to need. Here's what you're going to need for your worm box. You need a container. I found this. You could use those salad green boxes that you get in the grocery store, or you can get something bigger than this. It all works. You need a cover, but the cover has to have holes in it. It has to be able to breathe. So if you have a plastic cover, punch some holes in it. I just found some fabric that I'm going to rubber band over the top of it, and I poked a few holes in that. You need some shredded newspaper. If you can get newspaper that doesn't have color on it, that works the best. Kitchen scraps, which are vegetable based. You don't want to put any animal products in it like meat or eggs. So any vegetable scrap that you throw away. A squirt bottle with water to moisten it all down. Some soil. And last but not least, some worms. I got my worms from a fellow vermicomposter, but you can order them online and it's possible that your hardware store might have some red worms. So here we go. I'm ready to build my worm habitat. A worm habitat, a good one for worms, is basically just layers. You're going to need newspaper, and you can also use dried leaves from your yard if you have a lot of those instead. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So you need newspaper, leaves, dirt, newspaper, leaves, dirt, and moistening it in between. So start out with a 1/2-inch layer of newspaper on the bottom, and then take your water bottle and wet it down real good. Remember, they like to be moist. And then I'm going to put a layer of dirt on top. And my dirt is pretty dry, so I'm going to water that down as well, because I don't think the worms like it this dry, and that's probably why I can't find a lot of worms in my yard, because we live in a very dry area. So watering down my dirt. My next layer is going to be newspaper. And I'm going to keep layering it like this until I get about halfway up my bucket. So newspaper. Get it nice and wet. My newspaper is nice and wet, so I'm going to go for another layer of dirt. I'm almost there, so I'm going to do a layer of dried leaves just because I feel like that would be good for my worms. So they're nice and dry. I'll squirt them. And then I'm going to put my last layer of dirt on. I've got my layers of newspaper soil, leaves, soil, and I made sure it's nice and damp without any standing water at the bottom because worms can drown if there's too much water. So now it's the fun part. I'm going to put my kitchen scraps. I've got banana peel, tea leaves, coffee grounds, some cut up melon peel, onion, and eggshells. Remember, keep it all vegetable. And for the guest worms, this is really fun because they get all wiggly. Here are some friends that are ready to go to the new habitat. I don't know how many I have in here. There's a whole bunch right there. But they do like it dark, so I am thinking, since my container is clearish, I might cut a black piece of plastic to put it in or a brown paper bag because I want to make sure it's as dark as possible. But I've got all sorts of friends here that are ready to eat my kitchen scraps. If you're going to put your box in a dark place, it's good to set up a feeding reminder so the worms aren't neglected. Remember, a good worm meal can be eggshells, coffee grounds, grass clippings, stale bread, any non-animal product. But just like humans, junk food is not good for them. A worm can eat half its weight in one day. I decided my worms needed a little more dark, so I wrapped a dark piece of fabric around the bottom. And then I needed to top it off so they didn't get out, so I put a piece of fabric with a few little holes in it, rubber banded on the top. Give your worms some time to eat and digest and see what you find. Are the layers blending together? Is the food disappearing? Can you see worm castings? They're small, dark brown balls. Take a look at the questions you might have written down in the beginning and see if you can answer them. If you keep your worms dark and moist and fed, you will be able to compost your kitchen scraps indefinitely. Periodically, you can add your worm soil to the garden and boost your garden. If you're enjoying vermicomposting, take it to the next level and see if you can design an adequate worm compost container for your school cafeteria. And see if you can compost all the lunch scraps that are produced there. There are so many opportunities for us to recycle our food waste. Have fun with it.